All right, what's going on there, folks? Welcome back here to a Friday night. It is the Earthmaster here on this side of the microphone, about 10:52 p.m. California time, June 21st, 2024. So, latest activity here on the globe does show some movement here in Northern California with a 2.1. Also, this activity following a 4.3 earthquake here just south of the 2.1 earlier this evening. Now, things are on the uppity uptick here across the northern area of the plate boundary here. This is the northern section of the San Andreas Fault. The 2.1 coming in here at the northern end, extreme southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone. That 4.3 striking inland on a pretty much the San Andreas's sister fault here. Pretty lengthy fault that runs here on the North American side of the plate boundary down in to the Bay Area here. They think, well, it's possible that this fault system extends down into the Rogers Creek Fault, which extends down into the Hayward Fault here. Very lengthy fault system here. Secondary, of course, to the San Andreas Fault, the main plate boundary. This 4.3 stirring up here near Laytonville just about an hour or so ago. Well, actually, it looks like they upgraded this to a 4.5. A couple other earthquakes following that 4.5 here. Very shallow earthquake activity near the surface. This earthquake was felt across a broad area here across the coast range of Northern California. Not a big earthquake. Definitely not a big earthquake, but its location is of some importance here for sure. 71 responses there across Fort Bragg. Been to the beautiful Fort Bragg area numerous times throughout my life. Laytonville, about 18 folks reporting that earthquake. So that is on the Macama Fault. Again, that's secondary here, just after the plate boundary, which is the northern end of the San Andreas Fault. Now, the creep along this area around the Macama Fault is about 8 mm per year. Now, it states here that this area is capable of producing some large earthquakes. I did pull up here the data far as the records have been kept here from the USGS, and around the Laytonville area, there's really not a whole lot here in terms of 4.5 and above. It looks like the last 4.5 was back in 1930, north of the Laytonville area. A little bit larger down south here, just off of the Macama Faults. A couple 5 stirring up. And as you go further south, some sporadic earthquake activity historically as well. But far as full ruptures go across this area, it doesn't look like there's any mention, or at least historical data here, in terms of full rupture. And I'm sure this lengthy fault system here, that extends a considerable distance. If you look on the map here, it extends roughly about Santa Rosa here, northward, all the way up through Willits and into the Laytonville area where we're seeing the activity today. So, that sizable fault system out here, I'm sure is capable of producing a 7 at least. With that amount of accumulated slip rate each year and the length of this entire fault system here. So, and there's nothing showing up here in terms of historical large earthquakes out here. So who knows? Maybe we're looking at something bigger stirring up out here. California's been on the hotspot list out here recently, and I've been covering this a lot here in my earthquake updates. And it's only getting deeper in terms of the earthquake potential out here. So we got that 4.5, right? Following that, it does look like some strain building up just north here of the area with that 2.1, 18 kilometers deep. So we'll keep the earthquake watch out here for the entire California region. The West Coast definitely been on some higher potential out here in terms of larger earthquake movement out here recently. Let's check out the tremor map here tonight, the Cascadia tremor. We got 400, a little uptick going on here. 419 epicenters across the Cascadia subduction zone. Can you guys spot here where the uptick is occurring, though? The majority of it up here around the Vancouver Island range. This is the last area here to fill in. If you look at the last couple weeks here, we started in Northern California. If you look at the last 30 days, technically, we started with a huge uptick here across Northern California, working its way up through the Central Coast area of Oregon and Washington, now up here across the Vancouver Island range. So this tremor activity, I think, is telling us a telltale story here of some strain across the entire length of the Cascadia subduction zone. Now, while these tremors occur on average 12 to 18 months or so, that that has been a little bit different this time around. The last large tremor event on a given day was back in 2022, October to be exact. Since then, we've only seen, in the last 2 years, just little periodic tremor, except for the last month where we witnessed an uptick in tremor here along the Cascadia, and again, mainly on the southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone. We're looking at over 12,000 epicenters of tremor. There is that thickness right here. Look at that tremor count along the southern end of the Cascadia. And this is where I believe the majority of the strain has been building up here. And that tells me right here that we could be looking at a partial rupture of the Cascadia here soon, potentially. Not a forecast at all, but I've been watching these tremor counts here for many, many years. And this area is definitely, I feel, ripe for a partial rupture of the Cascadia. And that would be anywhere from a 7.9 up to an 8.4. The entire rupture here would be at least a 9-pointer or greater. So kind of watching that. Obviously, the West Coast is strained out here, not only with today's movement, but if you look at the Cascadia subduction zone tremor, that in itself tells you the story that's kind of being painted out here right now. The rest of the Bay Area down south here, fairly quiet, aside from a handful of smaller quakes, but definitely keep an eye on the West Coast here. Southern California, spotty activity, but a little clustering going on here across the San Jacinto Fault Zone. A couple different segments here on the west side of the San Jacinto Mountain Range here. Now, this is a pretty lengthy fault system as well. Not quite as, I'm trying to think if this is as lengthy as the Macama Fault. Roughly probably about the same. That does extend further south here into the close to the Mexicali area, up into the San Andreas Fault. Little branch here extending off of the San Andreas Fault. We got quite a bit of movement stirring up here. The key to watching, and maybe, I don't like using that word forecast because no one can forecast an earthquake out here. I've seen a couple of those floating around. Well, Los Angeles forecasting a 4.5 here on the 22nd of June, at 4:55 p.m. That's come on, give me a break. All right, there's no crystal ball that can predict when earthquakes are going to happen, but we can look at these little telltale signs here of increasing movement across various fault systems and whatnot, and go from there. And look at historical data from there as well. See when the last time earthquake activity struck in a certain zone. But things have been definitely a little bit of active out here across the San Jacinto Fault Zone here recently. And again, that's right up against here, or at least the branch of the southern branch here of the San Andreas Fault, which remains quiet for now. Nevada, Utah area, typical activity. Someone asked me here about Idaho. Idaho, there's activity up here, but it's hit and miss. Obviously, a couple years ago, we did see a 6-pointer out here, very close. I think it was just to the west here of the Sawtooth Fault System in Idaho. But as you can see, these fault systems here got various mountain ranges. These mountain ranges were not formed by wind or snow. Obviously, the Sawtooth Mountain Ranges and extending up here in this area are formed by plate tectonics. And that, obviously earthquake activity and slip accumulation does contribute to those mountain ranges building up over time. And right now, there's not a whole lot of earthquake activity there across Idaho, but we'll try to cover that more often when we do see activity stirring up. A handful of earthquakes there across Mount St. Helens, really nothing new. Yellowstone National Park. Well, let's go double check, see what's going on out here real quick. And that, well, only shows one graph out here. We would have to go back to the previous day, the UTC day. There's not a whole lot going on here, folks. Wind events and whatnot. Don't let anyone tell you that a reading on the map is magma intrusion, because that is not the case. If anyone tells you, yeah, this is magma intrusion in Yellowstone, watch out. You would expect them to back up that statement, right? Let's back up that statement. And I always back up my statements out here. When I see activity stirring up, I'll tune in. Yeah, wind events stirring up out here. And then I'll come over to the windy map, check out what's going on as far as the winds go. And bada boom, bada bang, there we go. There's your wind showing up across various stations out here. So magma intrusion, I guarantee you if there was magma intrusion out here, we would be seeing it on a broad scale area. And it would be showing up not only on one seismograph station, but many others. So ignore the fear mongers. I noticed that they're coming out in full force, and this is not a seismograph station bouncing off the ground or bouncing off the instrument here. I seen another big YouTuber say that earlier today, and that is not the case out here, folks. This is just an irrelevant station out here that has been ignored by the geologists. Okay, this is a defunctionable digital seismograph station. That is not a seismograph station bouncing off the ground. If you that's almost hilarious. If that was the case, if there was that much energy bouncing this seismograph station off the ground, we would see that show up, oh my goodness, across many areas of the park. So please ignore those fear-mongering YouTube channels. I don't know why YouTube continues to allow people like that to fearmonger. Across the area, Texas, we got 2.7 near Nixon, Texas here. Quite a few oil fields out here, as you can see listed out here on the map. I'm not just saying that, I'm pointing them out. That's one thing I do here on this channel. I don't like to just say something and expect everyone to believe it. I back up my information by facts. And that's the facts, ma'am. All right, oil fields galore out here. 2.7, and at the expected depth there is that you would see with an oil field earthquake. The New Madrid seismic zone, pretty quiet for now. Get my blood boiling here. My blood is stirring. 5.2 back building here across the Tonga Trench. Very shallow earthquake. Look at this earthquake right here. Now, this is a very shallow earthquake. It says 10 kilometers, and that's another question. Someone asked me, why are they always at 10 kilometers, or why are they always at 6.2 miles? Why does it say 6.2 miles? Well, that is the estimated default here for any earthquake that is not scientifically in-depth studied. Like, say if there was an 8-pointer out here, everything would be studied and focused on that earthquake to determine the exact depth of that earthquake. A 5.2 is not going to be scientifically studied, and so these are defaulted standard layered depth here earthquakes. Unless they're deeper into the region, then it gives off a different signal. But that's why it's always 10 kilometers. That's why it's always 6.2 miles. There's really no need to study specifically why this is at 6.2 miles for a 5.2. But definitely got some shallow earthquake activity stirring up here. Some shallow earthquake activity here deeper activity across the Vanuatu area this morning, leading to some surface adjustment here, as you see on the map. Further down south, super deep earthquake underneath the Kermadec Trench at 3.4. Let's see here. It does look like the Philippines seen some larger movement out here around the Manila area as well. 5.1. That's one of the latest earthquakes out here in the clustering going on here south into the Indonesia Islands area. There's a pretty deep earthquake there from earlier this afternoon into the northern edge of the Java Trench underneath Sumatra area. So keep an eye. Maybe potentially up here could be looking at some further larger movement. The big island of Hawaii. Let's see if we got anything up here first. Aside from that 5-pointer. Hold on. That just came up out of the blue. Goodness. Majority around. All right, who's got the voodoo doll? Who's got the voodoo doll of me right now? Putting pepper around my nose. Going to make me sneeze out here while I'm doing a live update. But that's a good benefit of a live update, right? Get to see my human side of myself. I'm only human. Couple twos stirring up out here. Got a little clustering going on here south of the summit area. Watching this pretty closely because it is concentrated in a small area and it is very shallow out here across this area. We are getting some activity further out into the upper east rift zone as well. So let's go check out the latest information here from the USGS in terms of ground deformation there underneath the area. We want to know what's going on. So the latest deformation chart here shows us that we're still somewhat elevated here. Got a little bit of a stationary event here in the last couple hours, but overall trend shows a sharp incline here of inflation since the last eruption there on the southwest rift zone for 10 hours on the 2nd or 3rd of June, I think it was. Lost a little bit of volume, but look at that. We are coming back like never before in terms of inflation. So we're going to see something here soon. Watch the earthquake activity. That will tell you. That's a telltale sign of where things are going to be happening. Right now, there's a little bit, like I said, there's a little bit here, but there's a little tail going off here towards the upper east rift zone. We'll kind of watch that closely. Let's see what else. Puerto Rico area, handful of earthquakes out here. The latest one, a 3.3 around the Mariotos Trough. This area has been seeing a decent amount of earthquake activity out here, but really nothing of concern. Really no major movement, just some deeper activity around the subduction zone regions. Atlantic Ocean, 5.5 out there today. A little bit of swarming going out there into the eastern Turkey area, it looks like. A couple twos stirred up out there. Iceland area, I did check that earlier. They're working on the berm, the breach, and the barrier out there around the Savartsingi power plant area, but I think they're getting a handle on it. As far as any unusual earthquake activity, let's go check it out here real quick. Goodness. Not a whole lot. 31 earthquakes. Whoop-de-doo. Not a big deal. No major unrest, nothing of any concern. Obviously, the eruption is continuing there across the Savartsingi area, northeast of Grindavik. But things are calming down. Their latest update here states, and I quote, see what we got here, that, let's translate that. There we go. The activity there in the crater is decreasing, and lava flow from the crater is not visible on the surface, but may be enclosed in channels from it, so underneath this area. But, things are... They're toning down for now, but as always, we'll continue to watch things, right? That's what we got to do. Keep an eye on things. All right, look at this little earthquake out here on this fracture zone in the Pacific. Gulf of Alaska shear zone showing a little earthquake activity, a 3.4. That was from late last night. But don't see too much earthquake activity out there on that little odd zone. We have been seeing a little swarming activity up here in the Gulf of Alaska, specifically in this region here recently. So, things are kind of kicking up out here across the north and the eastern areas of the Pacific Plate. That includes California. So keep an eye on the West Coast. As far as any major space weather activity goes, well, we do have a couple massive sunspot areas coming around. I do see a glimpse there of 3697 out there on the far eastern limb. It does still look magnetically complex. 3691, the former sunspot up here as well. This sunspot is coming around for a third time on the earth-facing side of the sun. I don't think they've... oh, they did. Look at that. They are quick to jump up here. 3722 appears to be, unless this is a front runner of the sunspot, 3697, but looks like they've renamed that 3722. I don't know. Does that ring a bell? 3722. I think it'd be better if they just kept the same names, right? But that's what they do. They rename every single sunspot that comes back around the bend again, no matter how magnetically complex it is. This is 3691, now renamed 3721 up here. We'll get a little bit better view of it here in the coming days. It does show a little bit of complexity up there. Let me check out the most recent image. Yeah, there's definitely some complexity up here. I think here, this region right here, 3722, is not the 3697 that we're looking for. I don't think it's crested yet. I think that is a sunspot that is ahead of 3697 here. It's easy to get mixed up on these sunspots, right? Just keep the sunspot numbers the same. Goodness. 621. But you never know. It's possible we could just be seeing the glimpse of it, the outer edge here of 3722 now. But this is 3697, 3664. Hard to keep track of all these numbers, but that's the large sunspot that produce numerous X flares, and of course the largest X flare of the solar cycle, and of course all those historic aurora events from last month. So we got to watch that here in the days ahead. It's still fairly ginormous looking. So we'll get a better view of it, the complexity, and what it's capable of here in the coming days. I do see quite a bit of bright features out here on the UV filter of the sun, right there around that sunspot that's coming around the bend. Overall threat shows a 15% chance for X flare, C flare around 99, M flare at 60. And we are getting a little bit of flaring going on right now. C flare activity, it looks like it's coming off of, it could be a combination of all these sunspots out here. It really doesn't look like any specific sunspot showing elevated activity. This region over here across the western limb continues to drift off, almost out of sight, out of mind. This area right here is growing some super complex magnetic structure here, but that is almost out of sight, out of mind here. So these will not be geo-effective unless it blasts something off maybe right now. But here in the coming days, it will not be. Storm Prediction Center out here. Well, a little bit of noise out there tonight across the northern plains here for the Saturday outlook. It looks like most of the severe weather shifts here across portions of the Midwest. A 2 and 5% chance for tornadoes there across areas noted on the map. Wind and some hail threats out there as well. As far as any changes there across the tropics, there's a little bit of tropical development there in the Gulf of Mexico, mainly headed west in the same area that just got hit. As far as any other development out here, well, I don't see it, at least in the next couple model runs here to the 8th of July. But again, this is subject to change. But yeah, nothing showing up for now. That's a good sign. All right, folks, enjoy your day, enjoy your night, enjoy your weekend. The weekend is upon us. The seismograph stations look quiet. Best thing to do, folks, is be prepared, right? We've been living in some very quiet times in terms of earthquake activity, right? We built up our infrastructure. We got satellites and internet in Antarctica. It's just everything's so advanced right now. Our technology is high-tech, and we're living in the information age, and earthquakes are at the back of our mind. But don't forget, we live out here along a major plate boundary that can produce some life-changing earthquakes, life-changing events. And these large earthquakes can no doubt, put a damper on all of our lives out here. So the best thing to do is be prepared and, pay attention to what's going on. Watch these reports that I'm putting out here. We've seen a lot more uptick out here than we have seen in the past across various areas of the West Coast. So I think we're getting into a more active period here as far as earthquake activity goes, and that's the time to be prepared. We'll catch you guys back out here in the morning. Have a safe night, and be prepared, folks. Catch you guys later.